Welcome to the first video conference about using the OGT calculator to do some of the OGT problems. We'll be looking at other problems throughout the month, and they will also be using the calculator. So we're going to try to have you remember what you learned today. So be sure you know that functions written on the calculator, like this SCI, ENG, F to D, let's say the square root symbol, percent sign, etc. Anything written on the calculator, not on a key, needs the second function. And those are also written on the red ones in yellow. On the keys are actually written in white. So make sure you know when to press second first. The caret key here is the one that lets you do any exponent or any power you need. You can also use this x squared for second powers, but this will let you use any power, second, third, whatever you need. If you need square roots, please be careful. You need the square root on the calculator above the x squared key, not this one that has the extra x on it. So the opposite of squaring is square rooting, and they're together. Second on x squared, we'll use the square root key. And it says also when you're using that key, be sure to close any parentheses before doing another operation, so the calculator knows when you're done with the rooting. Now, something some of you have probably never done before, which would be a good idea, here's the notes on converting to scientific notation. We have a button that has SCI/ENG, that's for engineering. We probably don't use engineering mode, but we use scientific mode. So if you press second degree, you can get into scientific mode. And we'll get some practice on that in a few moments. Once you press it, though, you do have to arrow over to where it says SCI and press enter. And then you can go back from scientific notation by pressing that same key, second degree, and then you have to go back to normal by choosing FLO. Like I said, we'll show you that in a few moments. Sometimes you'd like to change your fraction to a decimal. You can do that here with this F to D key. It can go forward, fraction to decimal, or backward, decimal to fraction. It's on second probability. There's many problems where they ask you to compare. Some are written in decimal form, fraction form, etc. Some of you haven't used the percent key much. The percent key is above the left parenthesis. So you'd need second parenthesis to get to the percent key. That way you don't have to worry about converting the percent to a decimal yourself. That key will do it for you. As always, make sure you know the difference between the negative sign and the subtract sign. Sometimes you get an error, and that's usually the problem. Your negative sign is down here. Your subtract sign is in the line with all the other operator symbols. And to evaluate an expression with negative numbers or fractions, try using the values in parentheses in order to be sure each operation is done correctly. So this is very important with negatives and fractions, and we'll show you that in a minute. So we're now going to practice a little bit of what we learned about using the OG calculator. So our first practice question is this. It says a virus measures 0.0000022 millimeters in length. Which of these values expresses the length of the virus in scientific notation? Some of you probably know your scientific notation already. Some of you know that you have to move that decimal point until you get a number, just one number. So it's 2.2 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th power, but it happens to be negative since this was a very small number. So it's answer B. However, if you're a little bit nervous about that and you can't remember for sure, because all these answers are very similar looking, you can use your calculator. So make sure it's on. We can type in that number. Please be careful. Check after you've typed to make sure you have the correct number of zeros. Otherwise, the calculator can't give you a correct answer. So after my decimal, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros and my 2, 2. So that's a decimal. I want to change that to scientific notation. So I press second degree, and notice it's got FLO underlined, then there's SCI and ENG. We will not be using ENG, but you need to use your arrow key to arrow over to scientific. Now you press enter, and you have to press enter again now, and it turns that number into scientific for you. So the scientific notation is 2.2, and there's your exponent. You have to look carefully because it is a little small. There's a negative 5 there. So the calculator can do that for you in case you forget. So, and almost every test has at least one of these on there. So there's a point. Remember, it only takes about 20 points to pass. We got 1 point already. Let's practice a little more with our scientific notation. Here's another problem. It says the area of Alaska is about 6 times 10 to the 5th square miles. The area of Rhode Island is about 1.5 times 10 to the 3rd square miles. What is the difference between the area of Alaska and the area of Rhode Island? So the first thing we need to know is what they mean by difference. Difference tells us to subtract. So we have to subtract those values. These are very difficult to subtract unless you turn them into decimals or let the calculator do it. So that's what we're going to do. Now remember, our calculator right now is already still in scientific notation. I'm going to clear that previous answer. Now I have to type this in. So I'm going to type in almost exactly what I see. 6 with the time sign, 10, and then I'm going to use a caret. So I'm going to type 6 times 10 caret 5. Then I'm going to do a subtract sign. Then I'm going to type the other information, which was 1.5 times 10 caret 3. And then when I'm done, I hit enter, which is the equal sign, and I should have an answer. So let's try that. 6 times 10 caret 5 subtract 1.5 times 10 caret 3. You can double check, by the way, you can see what you're typing, so you can check it along the way. You do have 2.5 hours on this test, plenty of time to be careful, since it's very important that we pass. Then we press equals, and there it is, 5.985 with my exponent of 5. So be careful, this is 5.985 exponent 5. This does not have the decimal. True scientific notation should have that decimal in there. You can't have that many numbers without having a decimal point. So our correct answer is C. And excuse me, I notice I didn't mark the correct answer on this one, which was B. Oh, and by the way, I also forget to mention, you do have a packet that goes with this that you can download the packet so that you can write right on your packet as I'm doing these problems for you. We have one more that we're going to use with scientific notation. This says Earth has a surface area of 1.97 times 10 to the 8th square miles. A new planet has a surface area 13 times the surface area of Earth. What is the surface area of the new planet? Well, they tell us what to do. The new planet is 13 times Earth. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 13 times Earth. Earth happens to be a scientific notation. We'll type 1.97 times 10 caret 8. And then we'll be able to hit our equal sign. And that should work for us. So here's our trusty dusty again. Clearing our last example. It's still in scientific mode, so I'm just going to type what we have here. 13 times 1 point. I don't know if my point showed up. There we go. 1.97 times 10 caret 8. I'm pretty sure that's typed correctly. I'm going to press enter, and I get 2.561 and an exponent of 9. I don't have a 2.561 in the answers, so you can tell that they've taken 2.561 and rounded it off to 2.56. We've got two answers there, but the correct exponent was 9. So this answer is D. So once again, if you can press buttons, you can get points on the OGT from just using your scientific notation. Now, since I know that I'm finished with scientific notation for now, I want to get out of it because let me show you this. Say I want to do 5 times 25. It's now putting my answer in scientific. That's going to be a pain for the rest of the test. So what we're going to do is we're going to press that key again, which is second degree, and we're going to arrow back to FLO. That stands for floating decimal, where the decimal moves around to where you need it. So then we just press enter again, and notice now 5 times 25 is regular old 125. So that's using scientific notation on the calculator. Here's a problem where, again, we get to literally cheat because we're allowed to use a calculator so we can solve problems. This question, which expression is equivalent to 8 to the 12th divided by 8 to the 3rd? This is meant to check your knowledge of exponents. But if you've forgotten your exponent rules, we can do this on the calculator. So we can do this all at once. We do 8 to the 12th, which is 8 caret 12, divided, don't forget that fraction bar is a divide sign, divided by 8 caret 3. So that's what we're going to do on our calculator now. We'll do 8 caret 12, that answer divided by 8 caret 3. The answer is huge, but all I had to do was put it in the calculator. And by the way, this reminds me, you have to write things down on the OGT test. You can't keep everything in your calculator or in your head. Write it down to be sure you are correct. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the answers they give us and we're going to see which one is equal to this long number. Some of these, hopefully you would know, aren't equal. Hopefully you remember that 1 to any power is 1. But if you've forgotten that, we just use our calculator. 1 caret 9. And we see the answer is 1, which is not this. So we now know it's not A. We check the B answer. I'm going to clear just to be sure. 8 caret 4. That's only 4,096. That doesn't look like that either. It's not B. Let's try the C answer. All clear. 8 to the 9th. 8 caret 9. That sure looks like that number. So I'm pretty sure it's C. I'm going to clear and just double check to make sure it's not D, just to make sure I have no mistakes. 5 caret 12 does not match. So we were correct. It is answer C. So you can use your calculator and kind of backtrack through answers to see which one matches. So that's another good use of your calculator, and it's also a good use of your caret key to do exponents other than just squaring. Another function of the calculator that we talked about originally was the square root function. This wants to know which of those points most accurately represents the square root of 150. So all we got to do is do that on our calculator as well. Me clear? Now the square root is this one here, above x squared. Try not to hit that. If you hit that, hopefully you'll see that there is, so I have answer somehow. Oh, I see why. Because if you're going to use this key, you need to put a number in. So as soon as if you try that, it's not going to work for you because, like I said, you're going to get answer. So hopefully that's a clue that you can't use that. So it's second x squared. X squared is the one you're used to using. It's right above that. Then I type in the 150. Since this is all I'm going to do, I could get by without finishing the parenthesis. But it won't kill me to use it. So I'm going to finish it just to be absolutely sure. Then I'm going to press enter. And I'm getting 12.2474. Oops. 12.24744, blah, blah, blah. That's far enough, I think, as decimals go. So I want to find where that is on that number line. Point A is pointing to a number that is less than 12. This is 12 point something. B is pointing to 12 point something, but so is C. D looks like it's pointing to 13 something. I should be able then to eliminate A and D because those are not in the 12 region. Now, is it going to be B, which is closer to the 12, or C, which is closer to the 13? So it's a little bit like rounding off. If you were to round this off, does it round to 12 or 13? Since after the 12 is only a small 2, if you rounded that, it would be approximately 12. So we're going to go with B because it's closer to the 12. If you wanted an answer for C, that would be something like 12.8 something, or maybe 12.7 something. So B is our best answer in this case. They usually give you a number of, or one or two problems involving the square root. Just make sure you have the correct key, and it's another easy point. Here's our chance to practice changing fractions into decimals or square roots into decimals or whichever. So it gives us four numbers: 31/4, 7 5/8, the square root of 50, and 7.82, which shows these numbers ordered from least to greatest. Do make sure you read the directions so you know that you're going least to greatest. Most people prefer changing things to decimals because those are easy for them to order. So I would think that this is another good spot for you to write some things down. I'm going to start with 31/4. There's two ways to change that to a decimal. I can use the ABC button first, which would be 31 ABC 4. And that gives me 7 3/4, but that's still not a decimal. So I can use my fraction to decimal key now that we practiced earlier. It's on the probability, or above the probability key, I should say. So we press second prob. That answer was already in the calculator, so I just went to this key and I press enter, and it does it for me. So 31/4 is 7.75. 7 5/8. First thing I should do is put that into the calculator. Again, I'm going to clear. Now that's with the ABC button. Sometimes people forget how to get a mixed number in. It's 7 ABC, then 5 ABC 8. So you have to hit ABC twice. When you enter, it just gives you 7 5/8. Let's use our fraction to decimal key again. Second probability, press enter, 7.625. Kind of writing on the edge of the paper there. Okay, so we can compare. Now, hopefully you can tell that this is larger than this so far. For decimals, it's not about how long they are, it's about places. They're tied for 7 right here. Then you go to the next place. 7 beats 6. And recall, if I wanted to, I could put a 0 on the end. Can you tell that 750 beats 625? So this is larger, making this one smaller. But let's finish the rest of these as well. The next one was root 50. So again, we've practiced our roots already. So I will clear second x squared key, and I can type the 50. I might as well finish the parenthesis, press enter. This one goes on forever. Since these have 2 or 3 numbers, I'm going to go 2 or 3. I think that's going to be enough. 7.071. I hope you can tell that this one is the smallest so far, because they're all tied at 7, but 0 is smaller than 6 or 7. And the last one was already as a decimal, 7.82. And again, if we want to make everything even, I can make a 0 on that. So we want the least number out of this set. And so now that they're all decimals, like we said, 7s are tied. We look at the next place, 10th place. This is the smallest. So it needs to start with the square root of 50. 2 of them do. 2 of them don't. Let's get rid of the A and the D. Now, if this is our smallest, coming in next would be this, because 6 is smaller than 7 or 8, which is 7 5/8. Answer C has that next rather than this. So C would be our correct answer. Once again, just using the calculator, and you got yourself another point. But again, don't get lazy on us. Go ahead and write these down so that you have them to look at. They give you plenty of room to write right in your right in your test booklet. You're allowed to write right in there, just as I am now. Okay, here. This time we want to show you the value of using parentheses. This doesn't look too bad at first when you see n squared minus w squared divided by q. But then when you see n is a fraction, w is a negative number, and q is another fraction, it's like, oh my goodness. So our hint before on the original set of notes down here was saying to evaluate an expression with negative numbers or fractions, try using those values in parentheses. That will guarantee a better result. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do exactly what it says. It says n squared, but n is a fraction, so I'm going to put n in parentheses. N squared minus w squared. W is a negative 6. I'm going to put it in parentheses. Notice, though, the squared comes on the outside of the parenthesis. Divided by q. Q in parentheses, it's a 2/3. So, now let's put this into our calculator. Let's write that out as well. For the fractions, you could either use a division sign or ABC. But if you use ABC, the answer comes out in fraction form. And check all these. These are fractions. So I'm going to do ABC. I'm going to do parenthesis 1. That's the little symbol for ABC. ABC 3, parenthesis. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do caret 2. Subtract, parenthesis, negative 6, parenthesis, caret 2. Then divided, parenthesis, 2ABC3, parenthesis, equals. So those are my keystrokes that should work for me. I hope you're following along. Oops. How much we can see here. So I'm starting with parenthesis 1, ABC 3, finishing the parenthesis, and I'm going to square it with my caret 2. Then next is that subtract sign, then my parenthesis, and remember now that's a negative 6, not a subtract. So I have to hit my negative on there, negative 6, parenthesis, caret 2 to square it. That answer then is being divided by q, which is another fraction, so it's going in parentheses, 2, ABC, 3, parenthesis. Press enter. Looks like I did a good job. I got negative 53 and 8/9, which is answer A. Once again, we really didn't know a whole lot about squaring fractions or worrying about the negatives. Our calculator let us legitimately cheat to get another point on the OGT. And here's our last problem for practicing the calculator. This one's going to help us with our percent key. It says a DVD player is on sale for 15% off the regular price of $135. After the price reduction, a 5% sales tax is added. How much will a customer pay? So 15% off. So the first thing we got to do is find out what 15% is. And you almost always multiply when you're using percents. We multiply when we're using percents. So the first thing is we're going to do 15% times the $135. So we're going to do that with our calculator. We can clear 15, then we're going to make the calculator do the percent, which is here. So we need second parenthesis. Now we have 15% times 135. That gives us $20.25. So there's the calculator doing the percent for you. Now you have to know what to do next, though. 15% off. Unfortunately, you don't get to pay at $20.25. You get to take that off. So we take 135 and subtract the $20.25. Again, let your calculator do that for you. So we have 135 subtract $20.25, which is $114.75. Now that is an answer on the test. It's answer C. But remember, we're not finished yet. And that's one of the test taking skills. They say reread the problem. Make sure you've answered the question. Because we haven't applied our 5% sales tax yet. And it says the tax gets added. But before we can add the tax, we have to figure it. Again, most of the time, with percents, you multiply. So we're taking 5% times, now we take it on the new amount, not on the old 135. We're paying $114.75. So that's what we use to find our sales tax. So once again, now our calculator can do that for us. 5, second parenthesis is our percent, times 114.75. And it gives us sales tax. It gives us 5.7375. Dollars and cents only goes two places. So is this closer to $5.73 or $5.74? Since after the 3 is a 7, a large number, we're going to say let's use approximately $5.74. Even if we round that incorrectly, we'd probably be able to tell from the answers which it is. Now remember, this is the tax. It gets added to the 114. Remember, not to the 135. We pay 114 for the sale price, 574 for tax. Add those up. You can use your calculator to add that up as well. But I think we can pretty much tell that our answer is now, oops, I forgot to carry, should have used the calculator. So our answer is $120.49, which is answer B. So there's an example using the calculator with the percent sign. And remember, this doesn't work for all of mathematics, but on the OGT, almost every time you're asked to do a percent, it's a multiplication problem. But just use your common sense. You know, you get money off, and after that, you still have to pay tax. So there's our answer for that. And that then ends our first installment on the videos for Math OGT. Again, you can always make appointments by calling the office of Lorraine Digital if you want more personal help. Thank you for your attendance today.